Welcome to Mostly Mets. I'm Jimmy Mack, and as we get further into this season and the calendar's about to switch from April to May, I think it's a good time and we have enough information to really look at some performances of this pitching staff and my grades on them, how I feel about them so far this year. It's important to note the Mets have a great pitching staff, and if not, I don't know if they're actually still the number one pitching staff in baseball, but they're definitely up there in the top three, and it's been a surprise. This is a pitching staff that before the season, everyone was saying how terrible they were and it was going to be the downfall of this team. But they've performed so much better than we thought they would. And all the credit goes to David Stearns for knowing how to find pitchers that can be fixed, and Jeremy Hefner and his team for fixing them. And they've done a great job. It's also important to note that these are my thoughts on them. These are my grades. It's how I feel about them coming into the game, how I feel when it's their day to pitch, and it's all my thoughts and my opinions. In the comments, please leave your thoughts, leave your opinions. Let me know how you think my grades are, if you think they suck, if you think they're good. Whatever you think is fine with me, and I'd like to know your opinion as well. If you're new here, please subscribe, give me a like, all that stuff. And with that, we're going to get started. So the first guy we're going to talk about is one of the guys that I get nervous about when he comes in the game. And I know there's a lot of people who say, like, if you look at his advanced metrics, if you look at what he should be doing, he's a lot better than how he's performed, and that's Danny Young. Listen, I don't really care about the advanced metrics and all that stuff. I go by what I see in a lot of ways. Yes, advanced metrics are important. They're important for a team to see how a guy you think he might perform in a certain situation. But overall, I'm more of a go by your gut. You look at a guy and you see how he performs, or if he makes you nervous on a given night. And Danny Young is one of those guys for me. And overall, I gave him a D. He hasn't been terrible this year. He's got a 4.3 ERA. He has given up 9 hits, 3 walks, and 13 Ks in 8 1/3 innings. So his numbers aren't terrible, but he hasn't been good, and he's a guy that I'd never trust. He gets into long counts. He struggles at some points. He struggles against good lineups. I'm just not that. I'm just not a Danny Young guy. And I know he's going to pitch a lot, especially now that he's our only left-hander in the bullpen at the moment with the Minter injury. But overall, he's just a guy I don't have a lot of confidence in, so that's why he gets a D. The next guy, Ryan Stanek, he's a guy that before this last weekend I did have some confidence in. He was pitching well. He's throwing harder this year than he ever has for the Mets. I think he got up to 101 in the Nationals, the last Nationals game that he blew. But overall, he's kind of a C at this point, because while I did have confidence in him early in the season, he's really struggled as of late, and I think overuse has hit him a little hard. He's only pitched 10 innings, he's given up 9 hits, 6 walks, and only 10 strikeouts. He's a higher strikeout guy than that, and I think he's just... Listen, everyone throws 100 miles an hour now. Out of the bullpen, every team has multiple guys who throw 100 miles an hour, so I think he goes through a lot of the thing that maybe like a Syndergaard did when the Mets had him. When everybody started throwing hard, you can throw as hard as you want, but if it's straight and you have no break and you don't put it where you want it, guys can hit 100 miles an hour. It's not a big deal. And if that splitter isn't on point, he's just going to get hit. If he leaves that in the zone, he's going to get hit. So he's really a two-pitch pitcher, and if one of them isn't on a given day, he's going to struggle. So overall a C. I think they've kind of put him in a bad spot by making him like the lead setup man or the backup closer if Edwin Diaz is unavailable. So I don't know that he's been put in the best positions, but overall I'm kind of like lukewarm on him. I don't feel great when he comes in the game, but he comes through just as often as he doesn't. So that's why he's really a C. I can't. If it wasn't for this last weekend, he was probably a B. Now the next guy, he's not going to be a part of the team for a little while, but he was probably the best reliever, or one of the best relievers that we had, and he's going to be a huge loss, and that's A.J. Minter. Minter so far this year has a 1.64 ERA in 11 innings. He's given up 6 hits, 5 walks, and he has 14 strikeouts. He's been the best lockdown reliever the Mets have had in the 8th inning, in late game situations, and it's going to hurt not having him there. Now Danny Young might have to take over some of those situations, and like I said before, I don't have much confidence in him. He's an A. Unfortunately, like I said, we're not going to see him for a while with that lat strain. They still haven't said whether it's a low grade or a high grade. I don't think they figured that out yet. It could be a month. It could be 3 months. Who knows? Those lat strains are tough for the pitcher, so you don't know what you're going to get going forward out of him this season. He could be back in June. It could be, we could not, maybe we won't see him till August. Who knows? But yeah, overall, very good pitcher that we are going to have a problem replacing in that bullpen. All right, next is the star of the bullpen so far this year, and that is Reed Garrett. I give him an A+. He has not given up an earned run this year. He's come in some of the worst circumstances that the Mets have had. They bring him in usually as the first guy out of the bullpen with men on base. In the 6th inning when a starter runs into trouble, it's Garrett that has to come in and clean up the mess. And he's really performed so well in those situations. He's stranded, I believe, all except for one of the runners that he's come in to face. And he's just been great. And this is coming off of last year where he had a really good season and really good stretches especially. But it seems like they just have something in Garrett. He's a really good pitcher. I think he's probably going to, if I have my choice, he's going to be moved into more high leverage situations. Maybe take some of those Minter spots, even though I know he's not a lefty. The Mets don't really have a reliable lefty. So I think 7th, 8th inning is where Garrett's more suited for because he's really been your best reliever so far. I mean, if you haven't given up an earned run over 11 2/3 innings pitched, he's given up 8 hits, 4 walks, 12 strikeouts. You can't ask for much better than that. He's been great, and he's a lifesaver, honestly, in that bullpen. All right, now we're going to talk about another guy that I can't stand. Honestly, Butto is awful. I'm giving him a D for this season. He's not an F because he hasn't been terrible. He doesn't have a 9 ERA, but I'm scared every time he comes in the game. Ever since the series last year in Milwaukee where he came in that elimination game and gave up 2 home runs in a row, he's just not a big game pitcher to me. He's not a guy you can really trust in late and close, and I don't understand necessarily why Mendoza goes to him so much. He's one of the leaders in innings pitched in this bullpen. He's got 15 innings pitched, but he's given up 16 hits and 7 walks, and it's just, he has not been good. And I know he's got a 4.2 ERA, and that's after giving up a bunch of runs yesterday. I think before yesterday, his ERA was in the 2s, but you can't trust him. He has no trust, and he had great stretches last year where he looked really good, and then he had awful stretches where he couldn't get anyone out, and right now he's in kind of one of those stretches where he's struggling to get people out. He doesn't have great stuff. He doesn't have necessarily the mentality to be a late inning reliever, and I'm confused as to why Mendoza uses him so much in that role. He's a guy who really, in my opinion, should be a mop-up guy. He should kind of be in the Brazoban or the Kranick role right now. He should be a guy you try to get 2 innings out of, maybe 3 innings out of, just in the middle of a game when maybe you're up by a bunch or down by a bunch just to kind of keep the game close, but I'd never trust Butto. Honestly, he's just ass. He's garbage. I can't stand Butto. Even more than Danny Young at this point. I know his numbers aren't terrible, but I'm sorry. I'm just not a Butto guy. Never have been. He shows nothing. He just has. I don't think he has the mentality to be a reliever. I think as a starter, maybe he could be a little better. But I just don't see him as a reliever or a high leverage guy at this point. All right, next we're going to talk about probably the biggest surprise of this season so far, and that's Max Kranick. Kranick has a 2.7 ERA at this point in 16 2/3 innings pitched. He's only walked 1 batter and given up 11 hits in those 16 2/3. I'm giving him a B+. And honestly, a week ago, this probably would have been an A or an A+. But he has struggled a little bit recently. Not that he's been bad, but you could tell he's overworked at this point. He's starting to lose a couple miles per hour on that fastball, and I think it's just a matter of being overworked, which is the only reason why he's not an A right now. He's definitely been a surprise, kind of came out of nowhere. Remember, he was on the playoff roster last year as kind of an extra guy who can give you a couple innings out of the bullpen if needed. As far as I remember, they didn't use him at all, but that's kind of the first time you heard his name was last year during the playoffs when he kind of got called up just to be that extra guy to if you needed a guy to pitch a few innings. And really this spring, he made himself known. And early in this season, I think he went his first 12 innings without giving up a run. So he's pitched great. No complaints with Kranick. I feel comfortable with him in the game, and I think now, instead of having him necessarily, being a 2 or 3 inning pitcher, maybe he becomes more of a high leverage guy if Stanek is struggling, or with Minter out, maybe he kind of moves up in that bullpen. Maybe instead of pitching the 5th and 6th and maybe go into the 7th inning, maybe he's now just comes in with 2 outs in the 6th and gets that last out and then goes the 7th inning and just work him into more high leverage situations. I'd like to see that because I think he could handle it. He has the stuff to do it. And overall, B+, I think that's a really good, solid grade on him. Really impressed by what Kranick has done so far this year. Another huge surprise, a guy that we got from the Marlins last year around the trade deadline, is Brazoban. He's been excellent this year. He's been, honestly, probably other than Minter or Garrett, the best reliever the Mets have had. He's got a 1.56 ERA in 17 and a third innings pitched. He's walked 5, he's given up 12 hits, and he's struck out 16. So I'm giving him an A as his grade. If you talk about, if you think about how bad he really was at times last year with the Mets, and he was getting demoted and really just working in mop-up duty, if you look at what Mendoza has said about that, he's just gotten more confidence now. He's always had the stuff. He has the stuff to get major league hitters out. He just would get down on himself. If he gave up a solo home run or a double or something, he would really get down on himself and take it really personally and feel bad about himself. And Mendoza and Jeremy Hefner and everyone has been working with him and letting him know, that's not the end of the world. You really have to get over that. It's if you give up a solo home run and we're up by 6-3, who cares? We're still up by 2. You got to get over that quickly. You got to move on from it quickly. And it looks like he has. He's given up some hits. He's given up. He gets it right back. Even the other day, he came in the game and immediately loaded the bases and then got three strikeouts to end the inning. So he has the stuff, he has the ability, and now it looks like he's developing the mentality to be a really good relief pitcher for the Mets. And I'm excited about Brazoban. He's been great. Where would we be without Brazoban? I don't know. He's given us length. He's given us innings when the starters weren't going long. So really, he's been a godsend for the Mets bullpen, and I'm happy that we have him. So he gets an A. Now, the last member of the bullpen that we're going to get into here is Edwin Diaz. Mixed bag on Edwin Diaz so far this year. I give him a C because he is 7 for 7 in save opportunities, and in games that he's had to come in a save situation, he's generally been pretty good. It's when he comes in non-save situations that he's really struggled. We obviously saw the game against Philly when he got through the 9th inning easily, and then in the 10th, I think he either walked the first batter or gave up a base hit, and then he had to come out because of a hip injury that ended up wasn't an injury. I don't even know what went on there, but he struggles when he goes past 1 inning, and he struggles when he comes in with a big lead or down big. But in save situations, he's been pretty good. So I think we just have to maybe change our perception on Diaz a little bit. I don't think we're ever going to see the Edwin Diaz of 2022, where he was just completely dominant and looked like the best closer in baseball, and the year that we got all excited for him and the trumpets started and all that. I just don't think we have that Diaz anymore. I think at this point, after the knee injury, he doesn't have the same level of life on his fastball. He doesn't throw as hard, and sometimes he just loses control, and that's a little tough. And for a closer to come in the 9th with a 1-inning lead, and if you walk the first batter, you're already putting yourself in a hole, and he's done that a lot this year. So I think we just have to adjust our thinking on Diaz a little bit going forward, and then I think his numbers become a lot different. He does have a 4.5 ERA this year. He has 20 strikeouts in 12 innings. He's given up 8 hits, 7 walks. That's too many. 8 hits, having 15 base runners in 12 innings for a closer is just too many to have. So yeah, C seems like a good grade for me. I thought about going lower, but I think C, because he's 7 for 7 in save opportunities, you can't put him any lower than a C. He's been fine in those opportunities. All right, now we're going to move on to the starting pitchers, and the first guy we're going to talk about is a guy that many Mets fans were worried about coming into the season, and we heard a lot of talk from Yankee fans and other people saying he's not a starter, and that's Clay Holmes. Clay Holmes is a solid B for me so far this year. He started off a little slow. He wasn't able to give you many innings early in the season, but that's to be expected. He's a guy that's moving from reliever to starter. He's starting to get deeper into games now. I know that there was a lot of controversy when he was lifted after 5 in the last start, but I think right now for him, and what Mendoza and Hefner want to do for him, is just keep his confidence up that he can be a starter and that he is able to go deeper into games. And I think that's going to come over time. Listen, right now he's pitching 5 innings. I think he did go 6 innings one game, or 5 2/3. But that will come once we get into the warmer weather, and it's not as strenuous necessarily to go 6 or 7 ups in the game. He'll start to go more. He'll get a longer leash. But right now, they're just easing him into being a starting pitcher. So if he goes 5 2/3, maybe 6 innings, that's about as much as you can ask from him right now. But overall, I mean, he's got a 2.6 ERA in 30 2/3 innings pitched. His walks and hits are high. He's given up 39 base runners in 30 2/3 innings, and he has 36 strikeouts. He also hasn't given up a home run. He's really been true to himself. He's a ground ball pitcher. He gets ground balls, he gets strikeouts, and adding that kick change to his repertoire has really helped him this year, and he's been able to get hitters out. So I'm excited for the future of Clay Holmes. I think he's going to turn out to be very good, or at least like a number 2 starter, number 3 starter, a high-end 2 or 3 starter, and I'm happy with what we've gotten from him so far. It's a B because he hasn't gone deep into games. He can't be an A because he's not giving you 6 or 7 innings, but he's been very good so far this year. Now we get into a guy who's probably the closest thing we have to an ace right now, and that is Kodai Senga. Kodai Senga to me right now is a B+. He's got a 1.26 ERA, which is great, and you're probably saying, why isn't it an A? Why isn't it an A+? Well, because he's given up 21 hits over 28 2/3 innings, 9 walks. He's getting around base runners in a lot of his innings. He's also not pitching as deep into games. He did have one game where he pitched 7 innings, but he's mostly used the first part of the month, the first part of the season, to get healthy and just to kind of become that major league pitcher again, and to get back into a major league season. And recently, in maybe the last 2 or 3 starts, is when you started to see Senga. He has pitched against, in a lot of his games, lower competition. I think that's why his ERA is so low. If you look at some of the early games, especially against the Marlins, he was giving up hard hits. He was giving up 5 or 6 hits, and they were all hard hits. It was just they were playing against the Marlins, so he ended up giving up 1 run. So early in the season, he wasn't necessarily the guy who looked like an ace. He was still good, and he still kept the runs limited, and he was getting a lot of unearned runs against him. So I don't think he's been excellent, but he's been very good. I give him a B+, because if you have a 1.26 ERA in the first month of the season, listen, you're doing something right. But we're just starting to see now maybe the dominant number 1 or number 2 starter, Senga. And I'm okay with that. I think he's going to get better and better as the season goes, and hopefully he's able to continue this really good start. But yeah, I think B+ is a fair grade for him. Now a guy who I think is probably the most disappointing pitcher in this staff, on this starting pitching staff at least, and that's David Peterson. Peterson started off the season looking really good, looking like he was building off of last year and maybe even going to be better. And over his last couple starts, he's kind of struggled. He's a guy who has had a lot of base runners. He's been able to get out of trouble most innings and most games that he's pitched in, but I think it's starting to catch up with him a little bit. It's the same thing that he kind of went through last year. He's a guy who puts a lot of guys on base, whether it's by base hits or walks. He's given up 30 hits and 9 walks in 28 2/3 innings pitched this year, so he's putting a lot of runners on base, and he's having to work out of trouble. He's got a 3.29 ERA right now, so listen, that's a good middle-of-the-rotation kind of pitcher, but eventually I feel like those are going to start to bite him. And maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's just a guy who knows how to get out of the situations, and he has proven that he can do that in the past, but you can't just have 2 or 3 guys on base every inning and expect to keep getting out of it. I'm just a little bit worried about Peterson. I give him a C+ because he hasn't been bad, but he also hasn't been good. He's been kind of a middle-of-the-road guy, and I worry that all the runners he's putting on base are going to end up coming back to bite him. Hope I'm wrong, but I have that feeling with him that he's going to end up imploding in one of these starts, and maybe it'll start a bad streak. But right now, he's been fine, and I'm kind of in the middle on him right now. I'm not necessarily excited when he pitches, but I'm not scared when he pitches. I'm kind of uneasy. I don't know what he's going to give me or give us, so we'll see what happens the rest of the way. Right now, he's about a C+. Now I think we're going to a guy that I had no expectations for coming into this season. I thought it was a bad pickup, and I was not very happy that he was going to be getting a spot in the starting rotation, but he's proven me and most other people wrong, and that's Griffin Canning. Canning I have at a B+. He's got a 3.12 ERA this year in 26 innings pitched. He's given up some hits, he's given up some walks, 26 strikeouts in those 26 innings, so a strikeout an inning. He's been really good, and he's clearly changed up his pitch mix this year. He's throwing way more of that slider sweeper, and that's been his most dominant pitch. Also the changeup that he's added. So he's kind of pitching backwards this year a lot of times. He's kind of working his fastball off of his off speed and off of his breaking stuff, and it's worked out really well for him. He's pitched against good teams, he's pitched against bad teams, and he's really been successful. I think he had one bad start, and it wasn't even a bad start. It was really a bad inning. That game against the A's in Sacramento, where they pushed him to go into the sixth inning. He got through the fifth fine, they pushed him into that sixth, and then third time through the order, he started getting hit. And since then, he hasn't gone more than 5 innings or he hasn't gone more than 6, I believe, and he even said it in his postgame after his last start that he hasn't built up enough trust in Carlos Mendoza to be able to get those opportunities, and he hopes that he has those opportunities going forward, but he has to work to earn that, and I love that. I love that attitude. He's been really good in a limited amount of time and a limited amount of innings, and I could see them stretching him out now and trying to get him to go deeper into games because he's been pretty efficient and he's been able to get deeper into games. They just don't necessarily trust him third time through the order. We'll see what happens with Canning going forward, but right now, he's on fire. He's pitching great. I understand 3.12 isn't the best that the Mets have, but coming from a guy who last year was statistically the worst starting pitcher in baseball. He had an ERA close to 6 as a starting pitcher, and he was just really bad. So we expected nothing coming out of him, and to pitch to this level as your 5th or 6th starter is just unbelievable. You don't get better production than that. You couldn't have expected better production than that, and I'm really happy with what they've gotten out of him so far. Now, obviously, their last starting pitcher is the biggest surprise, maybe not a surprise, but the biggest upswing of his career right now, and that's Tylor Megill. Megill has a 1.74 ERA, coming off of a great start in Washington. I know the line didn't necessarily look great because he ended up giving up 3 runs, but he dominated that game for 6 innings. He was great in that game for 6 innings, and you can't take that away from him. Really, Buto blew that game in the 7th, giving up the 3-run home run, and whatever. We're gonna forget about that game and move forward, and hopefully things like that don't happen again. But Megill has been on his most dominant stretch as a major leaguer. He, right now, has a 1.74 ERA. He's got 31 innings pitched. He's given up 35 runners, so he's at 23 hits, 12 walks. He's got 39 strikeouts, and he's only given up 1 home run. And that home run came yesterday as a solo home run. It was the only bad pitch he threw in his first 6 innings. So really great stuff out of Megill. We've seen great stretches from Megill before. We have all seen April Megill, and he's usually great. But I've never seen him pitch this well. It seems like maybe it was a mentality thing. They keep talking about mentality with Megill, where they have to keep telling him that he has good stuff, and he doesn't have to nibble, and he doesn't have to get guys to chase. He can go right after guys. He doesn't have to get everyone to chase. He can throw 97, 98 miles an hour. He has a good slider. He knows how to pitch, and he has good stuff. So why is he nibbling? Why is he going three balls on every hitter? Go after guys, get them out. And so far this year, it's really worked. His walks have been down. His base hits have been down. His strikeouts are up. He's just been really good. I think he's at like 11 strikeouts per 9. Like, he's been really good this year. He's been great. So, legitimately great. Like, as good as a lot of really good starting pitchers. So, Love what we've gotten out of Megill. He's an A-plus to me. I don't think I could have pictured him pitching any better the first month of the year. And it's unfortunate that the Mets haven't always played great behind him so far, but I'm just so happy with the way he's played. Whether this lasts, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get the same old Megill and he turns back into a fifth starter, but we'll see. Right now, I'm just enjoying the ride, and I think he's pitching great, and I couldn't be any happier. Just in wrapping this up, listen, I think that the starting pitchers so far, I'd give a B+, maybe an A-. They've been really good. They've just been really consistent all year. They haven't given up home runs. The walks are a little bit high and a little bit concerning, but really they've been good. Every single pitcher they have, like you see with my grades, the lowest pitching rating they had was a C+, and that was Peterson. So overall, the pitching staff, the starting staff is great. Everybody is really firing on all cylinders, except for maybe Peterson. And you have to remember, too, you're doing this without Sean Manaea, who is probably a month or so away from returning, hopefully. Frankie Montas, also probably about a month away from coming back. And I don't know who you take out of the rotation at this point. I know they'd probably go to 6 starters at that point, but there's still going to be one guy that's not in the rotation. I think you have to start looking, maybe, I think I'm getting ahead of myself here. We don't know if everyone's going to be healthy at that point. We don't know if everyone's still going to be performing at this level a month from now. But you have to kind of look at that and say, well, we don't have anyone who can come out of this rotation. We know we want Sean Manaea back, but can we take Griffin Canning out with the way he's pitched, or Tyler Megill out with the way he's pitched? I don't think you can. So we'll have to see what happens in a month. But right now, this starting pitching staff, who most people thought was a laughingstock before the season started, has performed extremely well, and that's why I give them a B+. And I debated on an A-, but I think they haven't been spectacular with all of the walks they've given up, and I think eventually that might come back to bite them. It just hasn't yet. So far, B+ sounds about right to me. Also, looking at the bullpen, I also give them a B+. We're starting to see some regression a little bit with that bullpen now. A week or two ago, this was an A+ bullpen. They were dominant. Every single night they would come in 3-4 innings and completely shut the other team down. They haven't been that same bullpen for the last week or so. I think it's overuse. They're pitching more than they ever have or ever thought they would this early in the season. And that's not really conducive to long-term success. Now, hopefully the starting pitchers start to go deeper into games and the usage goes down for the bullpen and they get a little extra rest and we'll see some coming back of those arms. But right now, they're a B+. Still extremely good. There's only really, to me, 2 down pitchers in this bullpen, and that's Danny Young and Butto. I don't really like seeing those guys in. I know they have to pitch, but I like to use them more with big leads or down big and not give them real prime opportunities to pitch. I know they're going to have to, especially with Young, because he is their only lefty right now, but just not my 2 favorite guys. But overall, bullpen, really good, B+. And now we'll talk about some of the surprises. Obviously, we talked about them in the main part of the video there, but Canning, Megill, Brazoban, and Kranick have all exceeded expectations this year. Brazoban, we didn't even think was going to make the roster. We thought maybe Blackburn, and whatever happened to Blackburn, I still don't know what's going on with him. I feel like he's another Jed Lowry. He's just not going to pitch. They just keep saying, he's had a setback, or I think Mendoza said he has the flu now or something. So I just don't expect to ever see Blackburn. I don't think we really need him except for maybe as like a swingman spot starter, long man out of the bullpen, a mop-up duty kind of guy. I think that's really what his role would be with this team at this point. Kind of the role that Urania is filling right now, being called up for Minter. That's kind of Blackburn's role on this team at this point. But yeah, honestly, Brazoban being the last guy added to this roster, to being probably their best reliever, their most well-rounded reliever right now, is just crazy to me. Add that with Max Kranick, who we didn't really know much about before spring training, and he's really turned into a revelation. And then in the starting rotation, McGill and Canning giving you way more than you ever thought they would. So a lot of really good surprises on this in this pitching staff. Hopefully they don't kind of turn back into their career numbers, but right now we're riding high. They're looking really good, and I have no complaints with any four of those guys. They've completely exceeded expectations, and I'm really happy with what they've done. Now, if you look at some of the disappointments, I think you really have to talk about Butto, Danny Young, and Edwin Diaz. Yes, for very different reasons. Diaz, he's been up and down. He's disappointing because when you talk about your closer, you want him to be locked down and you want to have confidence, and you just don't right now. You don't necessarily think he's going to get it done when he comes in the game. Personally, for me, I do. I have this strange thing where I just think Diaz is going to get it done every time, even though he scares the crap out of me every time he comes in. The next time he pitches, I still think he's going to be dominant again. But I think we just have to, like I said, change our mindset with him. He's just not that guy anymore. You're going to see more of the up and down Edwin Diaz than you're ever going to see the dominant Edwin Diaz again. And you'll see glimpses of it. I think you'll see, an outing here, an outing there where you're like, whoa, he's throwing 99 all of a sudden, or, that slider's really breaking. But overall, he's just not consistently that Edwin Diaz anymore. And we just have to accept that. So I just don't think we have a great closer anymore. We have a really good closer, but not a great closer. But with Danny Young and Butto, I don't know what our other option would be there. I don't love either of those two guys coming in the game. I'm always uneasy. You know my opinions. I've said them before. Butto is trash. Young is trash. Don't want either of them in the game, but we have no other choice right now. So, those guys have definitely been disappointments so far. Overall, listen, I'm nitpicking here. I'm digging at these guys and trying to find faults in a pitching staff that's been excellent all year. So, I understand a lot of you will probably disagree with me on certain aspects of this, and I want to hear about it. Like I said before, comment what you think, what your thoughts are on my grades here. I want to know. If they're bad, then let them be bad. If they're good, let them be good. I just want to know what you think. And if you're still here and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Give me a like, all that stuff. And I put out these kind of videos a lot. My next video is going to do the same exact thing, but for the offensive side and position player side of the field, and that'll probably come out tomorrow, so stay tuned for that one. And until next time, let's go Mets.